And our next guest is Eric Muschinski of Gold Investment Letter, joining us from the Skype universe. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, Brendan. How are you?
You know what? The markets are finally starting to move after a really slow summer for a lot of people. It's been a lot of fun watching them. And you know what? I can't complain right now. It's going well so far.
Good.
Now, tell us about yourself. You work with Gold Investment Letter, and you've been working with them for some time. Can you give, for our viewers who may not be aware of you, your background and who it is or what it is that you do?
Yeah, I started the first of all, I was a broker in the U.S. for 15 years since I was 21 years old. In 2001, I branched off and became an entrepreneur and gave up 6 licenses and managing money for a career. I launched the Gold Investment Letter the top month of the gold bull market in the fall of 2011. And I really love this space. I also have another newsletter, Elite Investments, which is sector agnostic. But I've basically built up a nice following over the course of the last 6-7 years. We have different tiers of membership in terms of, I have an elite group that all high net worth individuals, we finance a lot of juniors in the $500,000 to $2 million range. And then I have, a good number of premium subscribers as well as over 10,000 free subscribers on the Gold Investment Letter itself. And so I like to find, basically produce alpha. We look for juniors that are either undiscovered or they're coming into a discovery cycle, or my favorite, when they're just dirt cheap like they are today. So I'm an entrepreneur at this point. I do some other things as well. First and foremost, I'm an investor and I share my ideas with my readers.
No, and that resonates very much so with Carl and myself, especially Carl. Carl, I think you've always said that. We love doing this show. We love talking to different people, but first and foremost, you're an investor. So perfect words.
Eric, let's talk about GGI and your thoughts on GGI and MTS actually.
Yeah, listen, it's this has been actually, it's easy to lose perspective, right? We got involved in GGI and MTS. I'm a subscriber also with one of your previous guests at Bull Market Run. I found the deals back when they started covering them at, pennies. Excuse me. And so I put out an initial premium recommendation on Metallis, specifically at 25 cents a share last August. Stock went up 11x in 3 months. Garibaldi was an absolute beast, going from pennies to $5 a share. And we're also in a seasonal area in the Golden Triangle that has very long winters. So, it was very natural what's happened, which is the retracements, the quiet period as everybody gears up. I think what's happened now is we're on the precipice of hours to days of the first release from Garibaldi to kick off what they've started with the season. But a lot of people are getting a little nervous because, they started in June and here we are in September and it's where are the first assays? I put out a note on this a week ago regarding some of my thoughts around what happened there. And I believe they had delay. I do believe that there were some logistical issues with the drillers specifically that caused the delay. I don't think it has anything to do with they've basically been scrambling to try to find some more high grade. I'm very confident that out of the gate, especially after hole 17, with what they left us with last season, they're going to come out with some very, very nice intercepts. The key here is going to be proving tonnage. Everybody knows that. But this could be a world-class discovery. And we just don't know until we get more information this season from Garibaldi. I've actually made a bigger bet on Metallis simply because of a couple of reasons. I believe that this structure clearly goes down into the Kirkham property from the south of Nickel Mountain. In fact, I've heard that recently Garibaldi, as of even this past week, is drilling less than 200 meters away from Kirkham. They've been moving in that direction, and Metallis has got 15% of the market cap of Garibaldi. So they've also got some really interesting, big potential porphyry targets for copper gold in the south. But really the key to me is to trade alongside of Garibaldi and show that they could hit this high-grade nickel copper, and have some of that same system with Garibaldi. If they show that this season, it's game over for Metallus, and I think that valuation gap will basically it will tighten because Garibaldi will probably buy them out. So they're going to trade together. Metallus has got to prove that they've got the nickel there, but it's all about Garibaldi at this point. They're going to set the tone, and I hope that they're going to set it. If not tomorrow, they have obviously a pattern of releasing news on Friday. I would expect on Friday at latest that we're going to see what's going on.
I think that was well said. If we're just talking Garibaldi from current market cap, do we need a 30-40 meter hit of massive sulfides to go up, or could we have smaller pods with a bunch of disseminated, high grade disseminated to move this market cap up?
I mean, it's a good question. And, we don't know how a lot of these stocks are going to react, whether we think the results are good or not. I mean, you look at something like GT Gold and the way that stock's been reacting after they came out with massive, intercepts, really good grades, and the stock continued to sell off on the news. So I think that with Garibaldi, there are going to be smaller pods. I think that the way that this is set up, from what I understand from Dr. Lightfoot and some of the other research, you really don't need these massive, it's not going to be like a gold porphyry target where you can see this massive, huge conductor and everything is going to be directly connected. You're going to have some pockets and different multiple layers. As I think Peter Lightfoot called it, a magma highway. That's going to mean that there are some intermittent blobs of this very high grade stuff. And so they need to show that connectivity, but I don't know exactly what they're doing out of the gate. They kind of surprised us last season in terms of where they went with the drill rig. So let's see where they even target it. I believe they would start right after hole 14 initially and stay in the same area and hit a low risk, really good hole again. But who knows? They might know a lot that we don't, and surprise us with something that is a little bit off the beaten path that gets people excited.
Yeah, and that's something that's actually very interesting. The fact that no one really knows. I mean, you look at Garibaldi last year. Things came out and people, and it was a euphoria, and everyone was going. This year, it is hush. Nobody really knows. Is that a bad thing? Because it's so hushed, it's like, oh no, we didn't get it. We need to go find somewhere else. That could be an option, and you can never rule that out. Or is it, no, we're going to blow everyone's mind away when we finally come out with these results? I don't want to say it's a coin toss. That'd be too much up to chance. But it's interesting that there are no leaks, especially when you start talking to people who are actually well connected in the industry.
Eric?
My guess is that it's somewhere in the middle of those two scenarios. We tend to think that there's some conspiracy, when there's this silence, or that there's this master plan, or that it's an absolute disaster. And the truth is going to be somewhere in the middle. And we're going to find out soon.
Yeah.
Eric, have you seen any of Brent Cook's comments?
I've heard about him, yes. He made some last year, and I heard recently at some conferences as well, pretty, very negative comments. I don't know if I've heard all of them, though.
He's basically calling Garibaldi a scam. I hold the stock, so I don't want to hear that. But,
yeah.
But him and Warren are coming out, and they're being definitely bearish right now. It looks like he sold most of his free trading shares, if you take him for his word. Have you seen his comments of late? Warren Irwin?
You're talking about Warren Irwin?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are two very different situations. First of all, with Brent Cook, who's a geologist, who's not involved in the deal, I think it's extremely inappropriate to call this deal a scam. It's not a scam. I mean, they might not have what everybody's hoping they have, but there's no doubt it's not a scam. You don't make comments like that with deals that, you're not even involved in unless you're very sure that that's the case. That could be very damaging for him, or maybe he's going to end up, becoming the hero, but I highly, highly doubt that. And there's really no upside for him to say something so extreme when it's really clearly not the case. You have guys like Peter Lightfoot that I would put against Brent Cook on nickel sulfide deposits any day of the year. And, Peter's pretty confident that they've got something special. So saying it's a scam it's actually pretty stupid. I don't see what the upside is for him. And as far as I've seen the comments, from Warren Irwin. I mean, he's a very smart fund manager. I believe that he got involved in the $3 and change placement with Sprott last year, and so I think he's got a point. In terms of this, in terms of saying the logical conclusion would be that if they've said nothing for 3 months, nothing was leaked, they haven't, come out with core photos or something, I would be skewed towards being very skeptical as well. And so he basically took advantage of that rally. I don't know if he sold all his free trading shares or he just sold off a portion of it or what. But I think if I recall correctly, Warren was very miffed after the initial results started to come out from Garibaldi. It was things like the location maps and stuff like that, and he was very dismayed. And then his opinion changed as more information came out, and he became very bullish again. So any of us can have certain thoughts that we act on. That's our job as speculators, investors. He runs other people's money. He can't be, going crazy if he sees that there might be some risk or his instinct is telling him that. I hope that he's proved wrong in terms of the short-term sentiment. And it seems like from the comments that I was forwarded that he's open-minded to that being the case. But, that's why I put out that note last week about, what's the delay, Garibaldi? This is ridiculous. But again, I think it was because of a delay, and also that the truth is not that there's a master plan to come out with this crazy promotion that wows everybody, and also not that they've just been striking a bunch of mud. The truth is going to be somewhere in the middle, and I'm really excited to see what it is. But everybody's got our opinions. The bets are on the table, and we're going to find out who's right and who's wrong. Probably we're going to start to figure out who's right and who's wrong within 48 hours.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. It's funny because last year people talked about how promotional they were, and there was leaks, and now this year you have none of that, and you can't make people happy. So we'll definitely figure this out soon enough.
Well, it's a good point that you make as well, though, and the fact that you have to understand he's a fund manager. I'm going to take a different risk if I'm with using someone else's money and lots of other people's money. And it's like you said, if there is a delay and all that, and you have a little bit of a doubt, maybe you pull some of that off the table. Whereas for me as a speculator, I know the money that I'm using for this. I trade within my means. I got my things locked and loaded. I'm expecting great things, but at the same time, if I'm wrong, it's my money, not everyone else's money.
Well, but are you expecting big strikes of massive sulfides?
Oh, sorry?
Yeah, I was just going to say a good point on that is, institutions think differently, number one. They would rather pay up in general to have more evidence of something that they like instead of some sort of a guess. And the example you just laid out with your own money versus managing other people's money, look at Eric Sprott. The guy is in as heavy as he can get, 20% holding, and he's been buying up to $4. It's his dough. He said he would buy more if he could. He's all in. Nothing has changed with that. And so, you've got smart people on all sides of the fence.
Yeah. And sorry, you were saying on the sulfides.
No, I'm just trying to gauge the market and their expectations, right? If people are expecting, 40 meters of massive sulfides here, maybe you get a little bit of a sell-off, right? But I'm not expecting that. Well, I think they're vectoring in on a feeder, and hopefully they're going to prove up some tonnage here and show us their game plan. Yeah,
and it's interesting to note as well. I know you may not have seen it. But we had Johnny Mack come on the show last week, a guy really skilled at technical analysis and look at the chart. And it's interesting because we've been in consolidation for a long time. You'd think if there were weak hands, a lot of them would be gone by now. Well, is that something we can deduce?
It's true. It's just what's their expectation.
Yeah.
Well, technically, just a note on that. I mean, if you go even to stock charts and pick up the weekly chart on a 2-year, I mean, this thing is set up where that is a long flagging pattern, and it's either going to break up in a massive way or it's going to break down in a big way as well. But the longer these flags end up occurring, the bigger the move. I mean, if Garibaldi's got the potential, let's not forget also, Garibaldi, when we were in the heat of this last year, people were talking $20, $50 a share, Boise Bay, this and that. That excitement can come back really fast, and this thing could be $7, $8 in 30 days.
Yeah, I agree, Eric.
That'd be very interesting. You know what? That's what I'm hoping for. So that's what I'm planning for a long time. Now, you also cover another stock that both Carl and I are invested in, and one that our community actually is really, really rooting for, because there's a lot of interesting things happening for it, and that's Canada Cobalt Works. What are your thoughts on CCW, and where do you think it might be going?
Yeah, so I came into Canada Cobalt Works. I was actually contacted by the company after I put a report out on cobalt. I think this was back in May or June of last year. And as I looked at it, it really became clear to me that it was really one of the, if not the best of breed junior cobalt story that was out there. It's clearly become that with what they've done in the last year or so. And so we led a financing at 20 cents with a 30-cent warrant. And I've been, been a supporter in the market. I really thought after the name change, this thing wasn't going to do what it did, which was run to 90 cents very, very fast. We've had a very healthy consolidation. Yesterday, the bounce to the T off of the 200-day moving average and the reversal, I put out an alert this morning, a trading alert to all of our members, because I cover that stock in all membership levels. And I said, we're looking at a retest of the 90-cent level probably within 45 days. Maybe it's like 60 days or a couple more weeks after that, but it could even be in 3 weeks. It could be in 2 weeks. It's really looking good for a challenge of that. And I think some of the fundamental drivers are these guys have more than anybody, including First Cobalt, which has the highest market cap in the space, because of a lot of that's primarily because of the mill that they own as well, which is really neither here nor there. I don't want to talk about First Cobalt too much, not to slam them. I think that they've got a valid potential model as well. But Canada Cobalt Works has little over a third of the market cap. They're the only company that's underground in the camp. They have visuals on each level with two guys, at least two guys from my knowledge, with Frank Bassa and one of the other mining engineers that worked on this with Agnico Eagle back in the 80s. It makes so much sense to me that when you have a high-grade cobalt vein, you have lower-grade silver, higher-grade silver, lower-grade cobalt in this type of a structure. Agnico ended up focusing completely on the silver. I think Frank Bassa made the reason there's so much value here is because of his foresight in taking over this project early, before the cobalt market started to heat up. And they're clearly punching extremely high grade cobalt intercepts. They have other minerals that are there, with the only added in the camp, the underground access. They're very, very developed. They're basically producing cobalt sulfide product for their potential customers in Asia. Frank went out there around a year ago, a little bit before that, to try to find out what they wanted. So they're actually producing product, which frankly, the early indications of that are they could be a very significant revenue producer going forward. I mean, I've run the numbers, and that alone, just with some of the production and what they could earn from it, could drive the stock a lot higher. Obviously, the Re2Ox system is a potential game changer. I mean, clearly this cobalt camp is extremely active with a lot of different companies. There's new companies that are coming in that are very well financed, even right next door to Canada Cobalt. And the problem in the camp, and even in places like Idaho and other parts of the world, but particularly in the cobalt camp, are the arsenic levels. And nobody really talks about that, but it's a big problem. And with the Re2Ox being able to take out 99% of the arsenic in a green fashion, that could be a complete spin out of a new business. They also have the ability to extract, lithium and things from old products that could be done through the Re2Ox. We haven't heard a lot about that recently. I think that that's actually a real viable business model as well. But just with supplying the camp with the technology, you could spin that out into another complete different company that we could own as shareholders of Canada Cobalt, which could create, massive value on its own. So I'm expecting not only a lot of new drill results, more Re2Ox news. They've stepped out recently near the mine and believe that they're onto a new discovery, which could really wake up the market as well. It looks like they they're onto something there, and so that's pending as well. Canada Cobalt's basically got a perfect storm of news over the next 60 days or so, and they're also starting a marketing campaign. So, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer to go back to 90, and it probably goes well over $1 by year end.
Wow.
Well, over $1 by year, and you heard it here, and probably not first. It's probably been said a couple of times, but you heard it here.
I like Eric.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is that's two well-known people who really look into the market, who look at that Re2Ox and look at CCW and say, you know what, there's potential. There's potential, and this could really be something. And we all know we're continuing. Look at Audi. Audi just came out with their all battery SUV. You've got obviously Tesla has been around for ages. All these companies are realizing we got to get in this segment. Where are they going to get all that cobalt from? Where are they going to get the nickel? Where are they going to get the lithium? All these different things. It's going to cause a massive demand for this. I wonder if it's enough to really start pushing these up really soon.
Well, I hope so. I know there's some people in our group that have got in the 60s and 70s, and they're like, what's going on here? They're expecting it to make a move up. But there's definitely some warrants being exercised and consolidation, right? So seems
Absolutely.
healthy.
Now, quick question for you. We've been talking about GGI and nickel. We've been talking about cobalt. What's your eye on with gold right now? Gold's actually, you look at some of these results that have been coming out recently. You saw Sokumon have that great find, and it started rocking up. You're looking at Aben, they've had a great find. Golden's had a great find. You look at TIG, and they were able to, Triumph Gold, they were able to find a massive porphyry system, and they're still trying to really see if that's economical. There's a lot of different things coming on right now. What's your eye on with gold, and where do you see for some of these stocks coming up in the next little while?
Yeah, I mean, I look at gold from a bit of a macro portfolio allocation standpoint first. Everybody should own 10% of their investable assets, in my opinion, in physical gold and silver. Gold, the thing about gold is, a lot of investors think very short term. Gold going back to 1971, when it was cut from the link of the US dollar, has compounded at 8.5% a year to today. That's not bad, and it's fantastic in terms of keeping your buying power versus, and I'm talking about the US dollar, the Canadian dollar, it might be even better in that sense, certainly recently, but the goal and the role of gold is to maintain our time, energy, and labor that we put into working in one period of time, and then we're able to transfer that into the future without it being diluted like fiat currencies. And for that alone, it's a very valuable part of a portfolio. And really, I believe that it's essentially the most stable form of cash savings because it maintains that value over time. So I think that's important. We had a massive bull run in gold that was up, 9 years in a row. Going into 2011, we had a 4-year consolidation, and then we finally saw a little bit of a heartbeat in 2016. When you talk about the miners, the sector was absolutely bombed out. A lot of these juniors were going out of business. They were down 90% from the 2011 highs as we went into late 2015, early 16. We saw what gold and the gold miners can do when they essentially tripled in 7 months going into the summer of 16. And I've been surprised at how weak it's been since then. But think about it this way. We've been in for the last, essentially, besides a 6 month, 7 month period, we've been in a brutal bear market for 7 years. And I believe that all of the functions from a macro standpoint, the absolute massive debts and deficits that countries are carrying around the globe, is a very, very fruitful environment, amongst other things, for the price of gold to do well in the coming years. We've had some real headwinds in the short term, very, very strong US dollar. There's a lot of things going on in the world that have been holding it back a bit. My sense is that we're bottoming out in gold around here. The worst case scenario is that it retests that 1050 level, and this lull lasts a little longer than we wanted to. I think we're right now just starting a bounce that's going to be a pretty significant rally in the gold miners and in the price of gold. Silver, and again, you look at, I'm sure people on your show have talked about the commitment of traders reports. the smaller investors and speculators and money managers that are really momentum based are upside down short. The commercials, which are the pros that are in the gold business, that are always at the right time, they're at the right side of the market at the right time in big turns, have been net long for the first time in history 2 weeks ago. So everything is set up, I think, from all different angles for this to be a really good environment for gold and silver investors. And gold stocks are cheap. That's what I know. They're absolutely cheap. Some of the ones you're talking about, obviously, if you get a junior with a new discovery and they hit some really good gold, and this is a discovery-driven market right now, there's no question about that. So gold or silver big hits can participate along with nickel or copper hits, and you got to keep your eye out for those type of plays. But I think there's a massive opportunity even to put some of your more conservative money into some of the miners, some of the bigger producers. They're just too cheap. And 2011, I don't believe, was the peak in terms of frenzy, bubble. Think about where gold stocks are going to be if you believe that gold is going to go back and retest 1900 in the US dollar in the next couple of years. I mean, after this washout that we've had, they're going to be up ridiculously. And my ultimate prediction is that gold is going to go into the $2,500 to $3,200 range in the next, call it 3 or 4 years. May happen a lot sooner. Gold stocks are going to be a great investment over the long haul.
Oh, fantastic answer. Fantastic answer. I love hearing it. And I think you're right, especially when you start looking at the overall markets. You have to go macro once again. You have to look at North American markets. You have to realize we're in the longest bull run for stocks in US or in North American history, according to numerous reports that have come out. It doesn't just keep going up. We're going to have a contraction soon, whether it's a soft landing or whether it's an actual recession of some sort. It's going to be coming soon. And when that happens, people typically start going into gold. So I think that's going to help your theory out a lot as well.
Eric, what else are you watching?
I would say, from a timing perspective, if your listeners want some real potential action, one stock I would bring to your attention right now, it's a discovery play. It's very early, called Garibaldi Resources, symbol GUG in Canada. So get this, I started buying Gungnir at 0.5 to 1 penny in late 2015. I alerted my premium readers at 1 penny and then free subscribers at 2 cents. And I've been saying to buy it for a long time. I mean, that goes back, we're almost coming on 3 years since I recommended it. However, with the stock around 30 cents Canadian right now, not only are we up 30x on the shares, a lot of us parlayed our penny stock into a 3 cent financing with a 5 cent warrant. So that is, 30x on the stock and another 25x on the warrant. So you're talking about a 55 bagger. I am not selling any stock. This thing is, if you look at their recent news release, you can get, and this is also a really unique story in the sense that they don't need to raise money. They have year $1 million a year royalty for a project that they sold in 2014. They just had their second $1 million payment in May, so they have 3 more years where they get floated $1 million a year. They can't do a ton of drilling with that, but they can pick their spots in terms of where they finance. And they are located in Sweden, which is a very interesting area that has monster deposits. There are companies there, huge companies like Agnico that are very active, but we saw a couple of plays that are nearby Gungnir, one in particular, Orion Resources, AU, when they came out with their initial discovery back, and this was gold, back about 1.5 years ago, their stock went from pennies to over $3 a share. It still trades around $1.50. Barcelli, which is very close to Gungnir, their initial discovery took the stock to almost $2. That's still trading, I believe, around $1. Gungnir is the lowest market cap play, but with what they came out with about 1.5 weeks ago, they released core photos. There's actually one core, two or three core photos that it's uncanny how similar they look to Garibaldi's. I'm not saying that they've tapped into some crazy high-grade nickel deposit, because this probably, with the way that they described it, is going to be primarily copper, but they hit 130 meters of mineralization, starting 3 meters below surface. This is on their hole number 7. The first 5 holes was in their southern part of their property, which is predominantly looking for gold and copper, which is what I ended up getting involved in this thing for. And they hit those 5 holes in the summer. I've gotten word they sent 2 of them back to the lab in August for retesting. Typically when that happens, it's because the results are very good and they want to make sure that they have proof that they're good. That's not always the case, but that's normally why they get sent back. I think that's a very interesting bullish indication. And they're going to be coming out, so those 5 assays are going to be coming out any day. That could set the stock off. There's the hole number 7, which looks like it could be I mean, I'll just tell you, from conversations I've had with people around the company that were in the core shack with 3 geologists, 2 from Sweden and the CEO from Canada, you know, geologists, as one person put it to me, if you ask them if the glass is half full or empty, they're going to say, is that even a glass first? They're very skeptical. And in this particular case, these guys were kids in a candy store going through this core. They're onto something, and it could be very big. Nobody really knows about this stock yet. And my sense is that when you look at the landscape of juniors, I pride myself on being early with deals that, you know, are about to come on the radar or are on the radar with something very interesting. There's no better stock that has the potential to go to $1 or $2 from 25 or 30 cents in the next month and a half than Gungnir in the entire market. I mean, if they come out with even close to what I think they're going to start coming out with the first 5 holes and then thereafter, they also have a $400 million nickel resource already on the project that they bought for a song in the middle of the end of the bear market that gets no value. So it's a very interesting deal from a lot of different standpoints. You have nickel, you have probably some significant gold, and also now with this copper mechanism that they're tapping into, primarily copper, I think. It's probably got a bunch of different minerals in there, and it's a very unique. I've sent this to 3 geologists who all came back to me and said, basically, Eric, you're onto something here. I've never gotten that type of report from independent geologists that work with me. And there's no examples of what they're pulling up around this Swedish area. And they also drilled in an area that nobody's ever been anywhere near this particular spot. It's pretty remote. So that's what I would put on your folks' radar and kind of see what happens with those first 5 holes in this number 7 hole. They should be out, you know, both of those releases should be out within 30 days, maybe one of them within a week.
Well, yeah, I appreciate it very much, and that's really interesting. We will. And, you know, this has been a great chat. We'd love to do this again in the future. We love being able to talk to people who are really submerged in the industry, and the information I hope that our viewers are able to find entertaining and educating. I just want to appreciate your time very much, Eric. You can be found at Gold Investment Letter. Thank you again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day as well.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, take care.